Hi, I'm a VA hospital chaplain in California. We love where we live, and we were wondering if you could give us advice about repair versus replacement of a home. Our house is from the 1940s, and at some point it seems with Tesla solar roofs and electric cars and everything else that it would just be better to replace the house. We don't really want to move, and we're wondering at what point can we maintain our tax basis taking down walls and an overhaul of the house versus knocking the whole thing down and having an entirely new cost basis. Appreciate any advice you could give and want to extend our thanks and prayers for all the white coats and allied health professionals out there. Thank you for all that you do. And a special shout out to everyone working in acute psychiatric units right now. There's so much need out there with the isolation that comes from this. So thank you for self-care and other care, and keep on doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Chaplain, for your service. I just gave Tim in San Francisco a hard time about trying to live out there as a doctor. I think it's even harder when you're on a chaplain's salary and not a doctor's salary. So thanks for what you do serving out there. You know, this is a question that's near and dear to my heart, given that a little over a year ago, we did a major renovation of our home. And I had this conversation with the contractor. We tried to decide whether it was worth just bulldozing the thing because we love the lot, we love the neighborhood, or doing this major rehab. And when I'm talking about major rehab, I mean, we had excavators pulling walls off the house, right? This is not a minor rehab. It was down to the studs, new walls, additions on three sides, etc. It was a big renovation. And he assured me that even with the size of that renovation, we were still much, much better off not bulldozing it. And so I think that's probably the case for you. Now, our house wasn't built in the 40s. It was built in like 1989 or something like that. But, even so, there are some advantages to doing a major rehab rather than bulldozing and starting over completely. And I think a lot of those advantages come down to approvals and permits and taxes. I think it's easier to get the permits for renovations than it is to get permits for brand new buildings. And I think they're cheaper. The other thing that happens is my taxes didn't change. It's a much bigger house. It's a much nicer house. It's a much more expensive house. And my taxes barely went up. In fact, we've been in here now for 8 months. Now, granted, some of this may be due to the pandemic, and the tax guy hasn't even come around yet. And my contractor had had this similar experience. He had bought a house, or not bought a house, but built a house from the ground up, and ended up paying a whole bunch of money in taxes. And then subsequently, when moving to my neighborhood, he just did a major renovation, very similar to what we did, actually. And ended up again with only a slight increase in taxes rather than the dramatically increased taxes of building a similar home from the ground up. So I think there's some real tax benefits to doing that. Now, California has some unique tax laws as well. I know when you buy a house, you basically kind of lock in your property taxes for the long run. I'm not sure if that changes if you bulldoze and build up from the ground. If it does, that's another reason to renovate rather than completely bulldoze. But be sure you look into that as well. The main thing, of course, is to remember that anything you do with regards to this, the end price is going to be much higher than you expect it's going to be going in. So prepare for that, plan for that, make sure you can afford to do that before you get started. I think it's, and this is probably very relevant to you, Chaplain, the story in the Bible about the man who starts building the tower without calculating the cost, right? You don't want to do that. You want to have the money to do the renovation, or certainly a plan to pay for it. And my general rule with that is that you should only be borrowing the amount it is going to increase the value of your home when you do this. The rest of it you need to save up. And remember, it is not all going to increase the value of your home. If you spend $1 million on a renovation, the home is not going to be worth $1 million more. You'll be doing well if it's worth $700,000 or $800,000 more. Kitchen and bathroom renovations tend to bring a lot of value, Adding some storage space or updating the bedrooms, not nearly as much. So keep that in mind as you do renovations. I hope that's helpful to you. If you want your questions answered by the White Coat Investor, record your question at whitecoatinvestor.com/YQA or click the link in the description.